Thanks, Last Count Corla. Yeah, so it's difficult to resist discussing a treaty on outer space, the gag about this government living on a different planet, but I will resist it and try and take the issue. I'll try and take the issue seriously. And on the face of it, this treaty, although it is quite incredible that it's taken 50 years to get to the point where we would actually transcribe it into law, that is a pretty extraordinary fact. But the intentions, the objectives of this treaty seem laudable on the face of it. But I have to say, when I then looked at what are called the depository nations, where the treaty, if I understand, will be deposited, are the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, obviously now the Russian Federation, the United States of America, and the UK. And I mean, to me, that says it all, right? We have a treaty which is supposed to prohibit anybody trying to claim sovereignty over outer space or to use space for the purposes of war. And the depository nations for that are three of the biggest warmongers and imperialist powers in the world. The United States, Russia, and Britain. Now, the idea that they can be trusted with ensuring that there aren't attempts to colonize space for selfish strategic interests or to use space for military purposes is quite frankly preposterous. There is zero chance of that having any meaningful effect, it seems to me. And I heard the Minister earlier on, I was listening to his speech, talking about the wonderful impact of satellite technology, and indeed, and how it helps us navigate, how it helps us identify problems with the climate, deforestation, impacts on water. Incredible. Not that most of the time the world takes much notice of the information we gather from this amazing technology, but it is also that same technology that allows the United States or Russia or Britain or China or some of the big other military powers in the world to guide precision missiles to hit people from hundreds and thousands of kilometres and blow human beings to pieces. And that's happening all of the time. That's what the United States and the UK did in Iraq, to utterly devastating consequences, and that is what the Russian Federation is now doing to people in Ukraine. And indeed, those very same states are now ramping up their military expenditure. In this sort of great ironies of the discourse of these powers, to say, to somehow guard against the horrors that we're seeing in Ukraine, what we actually have to do is spend more on weapons and military expenditure, as if ultimately that isn't going to result in more disaster for humanity and indeed for the climate. So it's difficult to really believe that this treaty is going to make any difference in terms of preventing the use of space, which in reality is being used already. And then when you look at the fact, I was quite shocked reading about this, that Elon Musk, of course somebody very, very close to the American political establishment, now 40% of the satellites circulating around the Earth at the moment are owned by one individual who has a very, very close relationship with the American state. And of course, the other interesting issue is the question of space debris floating around, where the orbit of the Earth, or the areas around the Earth, is floating around thousands of old satellites and bits of debris that have been thrown up into space. So look, the objectives of all of this are laudable, but it's difficult to really credit the idea that it's actually going to achieve those objectives when you look at the states and the big corporations that are utterly dominating the use of space and indeed are the main
Thank you, Deputy.
users of military technology, both terrestrial and in outer space.